Have you ever wondered what the very first joke in human history sounded
Hi
like?
there.
Not
Let's
a
start the
worded
show.
punchline, not a
Wow,
clever
I'm so
observation,
excited to
but the
be here.
original
All
primal
right,
sound that made
let's
a group
go.
of our ancestors erupt in helpless, breathless joy for the very first time. What was the noise that broke the ancient silence and told a frightened world that it was okay to be happy? The answer is not what you think. And the story of that sound, the first real laugh, is the story of how we became us. To find the origins of laughter, we have to step into a world that had never heard it. Long before anyone smiled with their teeth, before anyone threw their head back and howled with delight, our ancestors lived in a soundscape dominated by grunts, screams, and the endless, tense hum of survival. They played, yes. Young apes chased each other, wrestled, and slapped the ground in mock fury. But if you were to stand in a forest full of our early relatives 2 million years ago, you would not have heard a single giggle. Instead, you would have heard something far stranger, a rhythmic, breathy panting. That panting, still used by chimpanzees today during rough and tumble play, is the raw clay from which laughter was sculpted. It is a sound that signals, this is a game. My aggression is not real. Do not run. And for an unimaginably long stretch of time, that panting was the only note of joy our lineage could produce. Then something shifted. Our ancestors came down from the trees and stood permanently upright. The rib cage expanded. The breath became a more controllable, more versatile instrument. The simple play pant began to fragment into staccato bursts, then into voiced, melodic exhalations. The biological machinery of laughter was assembling itself, piece by piece, waiting for the right moment to be switched on. That moment, when it finally arrived, was not a grand, dramatic event. It was a clumsy accident on an ordinary afternoon, and it changed everything. Picture a small family group of Homo erectus resting in the shade of an acacia tree. The morning hunt is over. For once, bellies are full. The ever-present edge of hunger has retreated, and a rare, fragile thing has filled its place: free time. A young female, perhaps 7 years old, full of restless energy, pokes her older brother with a stripped twig. He ignores her. She pokes him again, harder. He swats the twig away without looking. So she does what any younger sibling has done for 1 million years. She snatches a scrap of leftover meat and runs. The brother gives chase. Legs pumping, dust kicking up, the girl glances over her shoulder, laughing already in her head, and misjudges a low tangle of grass. She tumbles, not a hard, painful fall, but a soft, dramatic roll that ends with her sitting upright, covered in dry grass, eyes wide. For one tense second, the brother freezes, scanning her face for injury. And then the sound comes. Not a cry, not a pant. A rhythmic, vocalized, stuttering burst of pure exhalation, pulled straight from her belly, open-mouthed and unashamed. She laughs. The brother does not know what to do. His posture softens. His breath catches. And then, without permission, his own mouth opens, and the same sound spills out. He laughs too. Within moments, an elder dozing nearby stirs, hears the chorus, and her lined face cracks into a toothless, wheezing echo. A toddler, too young to understand the cause, laughs simply because the others are laughing. The sound spreads like ripples in a pond, and for the first time in the history of the planet, a family of hominins is filled with the sound of shared, vocal joy. No predator has ever made this noise. No prey animal has ever dared to release it. It is a brand new thing under the sun, and it will rewrite the architecture of the human mind. The reason that first laugh spread so quickly is that the brain had already been preparing for it. Deep inside your head, in the premotor cortex, there lies a dedicated neural circuit that does one astonishing thing. When you hear another person laugh, it automatically primes your own vocal muscles to join in. You do not decide to catch a laugh any more than you decide to catch a yawn. It is a reflex hardened by natural selection because those who laugh together stayed together. When that little girl laughed after her tumble, she was not just making a noise. She was pushing a biological domino that tipped every other brain in earshot into the same state of safety and connection. The first laugh was not a solo performance. It was an instant, involuntary choir, and it bound the group together in a way that grooming and proximity never could. But laughter did not just bind, it healed. To understand how, you must understand what life was like in the hours before that first laugh. The group had survived the night, and as we explore in our previous story, the Stone Age night was a genuine horror movie, filled with glowing eyes and patient predators and the constant, crushing terror of the unseen. When the sun finally rose, the nervous systems of every survivor were still screaming. Muscles were locked. Breath was shallow. The shadow of death still lay across the tribe. Grooming could calm an individual. Touch could soothe a child. But laughter could reset the entire group in a matter of seconds. It was an audible flag that said, "The danger has passed. We are safe. We are still a family." And because the brain cannot easily produce a genuine laugh while in a state of genuine fear, the sound was an honest signal. It cannot be faked. When you heard laughter ripple through the camp, you knew, deep in your bones, that for this moment at least, the world was not trying to kill you. This is why, even today, we laugh hardest after the fear lifts. The car that almost hit you, the stumble on the edge of a cliff, the sudden shadow in a dark hallway that turned out to be a co-track. These moments are followed by an explosion of giggles that feel almost irrational. But they are not irrational at all. They're your ancient nervous system sounding the all-clear, a reflex so old that it predates language, cities, and civilization itself. The first laugh was born in the exhale after terror, and every time you laugh in relief, you're breathing the exact same air your ancestors breathed on 100,000 ancient mornings. Once laughter had established itself as the signal of safety, it began to evolve rapidly into something even more powerful, a tool for building trust. You are 30 times more likely to laugh in the presence of others than you are when you are alone. This is not because other people are funnier than solitude. It is because laughter is not primarily a response to humor. It is a response to connection. When those early hominins laughed together over a child's tumble, they were doing something profound. They were saying, without a single word, "I see what you see. I feel what you feel. We are aligned." And that alignment built trust faster than any formal arrangement ever could. In a world without contracts, without courts, without any guarantee of loyalty except the bonds of the heart, the people who could laugh together were the people who could hunt together, defend each other, and share meat without counting the scraps. Laughter was the original social glue, and it held the tribe together as tightly as sinew holds muscle to bone. The primary training ground for this glue was the oldest game in the world, tickling. The parts of your body that are most ticklish, the ribs, the neck, the belly, are the exact places a predator would strike in a deadly attack. When a Stone Age parent pinned a toddler to the soft earth and gently dug fingers into those vulnerable spots, they were doing two things at once. First, they were simulating a miniature crisis, complete with the loss of control and the breathless struggle. Second, and far more importantly, they were teaching the child that the crisis ends in safety and joy. The laughter that erupted from those tickle sessions was the sound of a developing nervous system learning to trust. It was the first lesson in one of life's hardest truths. Not every surprise is a threat. Not every touch is an attack. Some unexpected contact is love. And every time you hear a baby's bubbling giggle today, you are listening to an echo of that ancient, life-saving lesson. As laughter became central to daily life, it began to acquire a richly nuanced vocabulary. Long before we had words for friendship, mockery, or flirtation, we had laughs for all of them. A short, explosive snort could convey derision. A low, conspiratorial chuckle between two people meant secrets were being shared. A high-pitched shriek of shared delight at a slapstick fall was entirely different from the warm, rolling laugh of a group listening to a beloved elder's story. Our ancestors learned to read these variations with astonishing precision. They could hear a laugh from across the camp and instantly know whether to relax, to join in, or to be on guard. The laugh had become a social Swiss Army knife. It was used every single day. One of its sharpest blades was the defusing of conflict. In a small group where a dispute over meat or status could turn deadly in seconds, laughter was a diplomatic tool of unmatched power. Imagine two young males beginning to posture, chests puffed, hands tightening on their spears. The tension is a bowstring about to snap. Then an older woman, someone who has seen this 100 times, does something absurd. She puts a large leaf on her head and struts between them with exaggerated dignity. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then one of the young men snorts. The other's mouth twitches. And then both are laughing, the aggression draining out of their bodies like water from a cracked pot. The laughter says, without rancor, this is not worth blood. We are still brothers. It is conflict resolution before the invention of the word sorry. And it kept countless families from shattering under the pressure of survival. Then, somewhere deep in prehistory, laughter made its greatest leap. It became deliberate. The first human with a sense of humor was not someone who crafted a witty remark. It was someone who realized that they could provoke this sacred sound on purpose. Maybe it was a young man who noticed that if he walked into camp with a piece of fruit balanced on his head and a completely serious face, the others would stop, stare, and then collapse into howls. Maybe it was a woman who exaggeratedly mimicked the swagger of a boastful hunter, and the group's laughter was a kinder critique than any words could have been. These were the first comedians, and their reward was not just applause. It was inclusion. The person who could make the tribe laugh was fed. They were protected. They were loved. Humor, from its very first spark, was a survival trait, and it put creative, playful minds at the very center of the social circle. The cognitive demands of humor also shaped the brain itself. Humor relies on surprise, on pattern recognition, on the sudden delighted crash of two unrelated ideas. When an early human brain recognized an unexpected connection and laughed, a flood of dopamine washed through the prefrontal cortex. That was not just pleasure. It was a learning accelerator. The brain that could laugh at a clever misdirection was the brain that could think flexibly, solve novel problems, and imagine alternatives to reality. The first laugh and the first spark of imagination were born from the same mental fire. To this day, the smartest, most innovative people are often those with the most playful sense of humor, because the two abilities share deep neural roots. And so the Stone Age camp was not the grim, silent place we sometimes imagine. Yes, there was terror and loss, but there were also long, golden afternoons by the river, with children splashing and elders dozing, and a few young jokers trying desperately to one-up each other with ever more ridiculous antics. Someone would sneak up and tickle a napper's nose with a grass blade. The napper would startle, the group would erupt, and the napper, after a grumpy pause, would laugh along because the infection of shared joy was too strong to resist. These small, warm cycles of surprise and relief and laughter were the emotional heartbeat of early human life. They taught the young that the world could be funny. They taught the old that their legacy was not just tools and fire, but joy. And they left a permanent mark on our psychology that no amount of modern stress can fully erase. One of the most beautiful marks is the way laughter synchronizes the bodies of those who share it. When ancient people laughed together, their heart rates aligned. Their breathing fell into shared rhythms. Their brainwaves, recent research suggests, began to oscillate in parallel patterns. In a very real, measurable sense, a laughing group became a single biological organism. For a species that depended entirely on cooperation for hunting, defense, and child-rearing, this synchronization was a superpower. It allowed the tribe to function as a seamless unit, able to anticipate each other's movements and intentions without a single spoken command. Laughter was the daily rehearsal of that unity. It oiled the machinery of togetherness, and it made the human group the most coordinated, flexible, and resilient social unit the planet had ever seen. The legacy of that first laugh is still alive in you. Right now, the same brain regions that lit up in that tumbling girl 2 million years ago light up when you watch a comedy. The same endorphins flood your system. The same respiratory muscles contract in those ancient staccato bursts. When you laugh with a new friend, You are subconsciously asking the oldest question in our social repertoire. Are we safe together? And when the answer comes back in an involuntary chorus of giggles, you know the bond is real. When you and a loved one break a tense silence with an unexpected, shared laugh, you are using a peacemaking tool that has been preventing violence since before we had words for peace. When a room full of strangers in a comedy club all laugh at the same moment, their breathing aligns, their heart rates converge, and for a few fleeting seconds, they are not strangers at all. They are a tribe. So the first laugh was not a trivial footnote in the human story. It was a hinge point. Before the laugh, we were intelligent, social primates surviving through grim determination and occasional panting. After the laugh, we became a species that could heal its own trauma, build trust on a massive scale, and turn the shared recognition of life's beautiful absurdity into the deepest form of community. The laugh did not just change the soundscape of the savannah. It changed the soundscape of the soul. It carved a channel of lightness through the heavy stone of existence, and that channel has been flowing ever since, nourishing everything we call love, friendship, and home. So tonight, as you settle into the quiet, think of the last time you truly laughed. The kind of laugh that stole your breath and left you weak and tear-streaked. That moment was not just a release. It was an inheritance. Somewhere in the deep past, an ancestor whose name is lost forever, a small person with a round head and thin limbs, tripped in a patch of soft grass and made a sound of pure, defiant joy. That sound was so valuable, so crucial to our survival, that evolution locked it into the very fabric of your nervous system. Your laugh is their laugh, still ringing, still keeping the darkness at bay, still telling the tribe that everything is, for this one sacred moment, okay. So go seek your first laugh of the day. Chase it. Give it without reservation. Receive it without pride. It is the most ancient, most honest language we possess, and it remains, after 2 million years, the finest thing we ever learned to say without a single word. Scene: warm pastel sunset. A simple stick figure family crosses a grassy plain. A small child leaps joyfully into an adult's arms. The adult's head is tilted back in a silent, open-mouthed laugh. The sun glows softly. Gentle, uplifting music fades.